At the Global Investigative Journalism Conference, we asked some of the world's leading experts for their top tips when investigating stories. We also asked for investigative journalism itself to be defined, what it is and what it isn't.
Investigative reporting has different names. Some people call it depth reporting, some call it enterprise reporting, others project reporting, but all these are loosely grouped under the rubric of investigative journalism. What is investigative journalism? You can get a lot of definitions from different people, but the journalists themselves who practice investigative reporting pretty much agree on a set of characteristics that describe the field. The first definition, if you look in an English language dictionary at the word investigation, it means systematic inquiry. It means that you're taking your time and you're going about things in a systematic way to analyze what is really going on in the world. Now, to this, we would add that the work you're doing is original as well as in-depth. So systematic, in-depth, and original reporting is investigative journalism. Our second definition of investigative reporting is about forming a hypothesis. Good investigative reporters tend to think like an honest public prosecutor or a good police detective. They form a hypothesis about what's going on. They use, in effect, the scientific method. You form a theory and then you test it. You go out there and you find the facts that will either support or not support your thesis. It's one of the hardest things in investigative reporting. If your facts don't support your theory, you have to abandon it, but that's what we do. The third definition of investigative journalism is about using lots of public records and public data. Investigative reporters often talk about following trails, trails of people, trails of money, trails of institutions, trails of accountability. And they do this through paper trails and data trails. They collect as much as they can that's on the public record. They get documents leaked to them and data leaked to them, and then they analyze that and follow the trails to find out what's really going on. As Deep Throat famously said in the movie All the President's Men, if you want to know what's going on, follow the money. How do you follow the money? Data and documents. Our fourth definition of investigative journalism is about making public things that are secret or hidden. Investigative reporters are often dealing with secret information, with things that people, particularly in power, don't want to come out because it's embarrassing or it shows that they've abused their position or power in society. Part of our job is bearing those things and showing them to the public so that people really know what's going on. Sometimes it's not deliberate. Sometimes the facts of a given situation are just hidden behind a maze of circumstances and situations. And it's the job of a good investigative reporter to put those together. So in the end, 2 + 2 may actually equal 5. Our fifth definition of investigative journalism is about its focus on social justice and accountability. If you go back to the beginnings of modern investigative journalism, say to the old muckrakers of America's progressive era more than 100 years ago, these were crusading journalists who believed in righting wrongs. They believed in protecting the little guy and those most vulnerable in our societies. They went after big city corruption, medical malpractice, the biggest corporations abusing their workers and trashing the environment. There's always been this calling in the profession to social accountability, and it's really woven in to the practice around the world. Investigative reporting has sometimes been called the journalism of outrage, and for good reason. Investigative reporters believe in righting wrongs. Now that we talked about what investigative journalism is, let's take a minute and talk about what it isn't. Investigative reporting is not what we call leak journalism. Just because you get a leaked document or leaked data doesn't mean that you're doing an investigation. It doesn't mean you've done a systematic inquiry. If you look at some of the great projects of massive leaked data in recent years, they've used the leak as the beginning of the investigation, not the end of it. They use it to generate leads, and then they do the systematic kind of investigating that we've been talking about. Investigative reporting is also not simply about crime and corruption. Covering crime and corruption is a beat, and investigations could be about any topic. They could be about health or education or human rights. The mere fact that you're writing about illegal acts doesn't mean that you're doing an investigative report. So what is investigative journalism? From talking to reporters all around the world, we can come up with a strong consensus definition. Investigative journalism is the in-depth, systematic use of original research and reporting. It often uses large amounts of data and documents. It uses public records to find out what is going on. It also involves frequently the bearing of secrets. It makes information that before had been hidden into the public domain. Finally, it has a strong emphasis on social justice and accountability. So all these ingredients together make up what has really become the modern practice of professional investigative journalism. What do we mean by systematic investigation? Well, let's take the most common kind of beat reporting, say covering a fire. If your editor sends a reporter out to cover a fire, you ask your basic who, what, where, why, when, how, okay? You want to know how many fire engines responded. Was anybody injured? How much damage was done? How long did the fire burn for? But let's say you're covering the fire and you notice that the fire hoses don't work very well and that the firefighters are complaining about the quality of their equipment. So you go to City Hall and you pull the records for that contract and you find out that the guy who signed it is a friend of the mayor's, and there's a sweetheart deal involving the provision of fire equipment to all the city's fire departments. That's a systematic inquiry.